These are all of the library books that we have to return. Every one of them. Let's go. Just a few books, no big deal. So it's not really easy for me to admit this, but a few weeks ago I made a video where I made the comment that somebody had said that I was kind of like they thought I would make a good pastor, and I immediately felt kind of put off by that, because being a pastor is not anything like what I've ever intended. But I have to admit something. I was wrong. Not about the pastor thing. I'm not a pastor. I have no intention of pastoring a church. I have no preconceived ideas that I'm even that type of a person. However, I have been a Christian my whole life. I've studied the Bible my whole life. And something that a lot of people might not know about me is that I'm a Bible school dropout. The more I think about it and the more I spend time in prayer and meditation, and the more of these videos that I make, I just can't escape the fact that I feel like I have a message that it's not special to me. I didn't come up with it. It's not anything new, but it's just not popular anymore. But I think it's the thing that people need to hear. The rain is really starting to pick up, so I'm gonna move. Okay, that's better. So I have this message, and the thing that I think is so important about it is that it gets down to the core of what a Christian should believe. And the thing, it's actually kind of sad to me because the majority of Christians don't believe this. They say they believe it, but in their actions and in their lifestyle and in the words that they say, the things they talk about and the things they do, it doesn't show itself through their lifestyle. And it really should be the core of who they are and what they believe, but it takes the back seat and often, becomes second, third, fourth priority. And so they still have the ability to say, oh yes, I believe in this thing, but it just doesn't come out because it's way back on their priority list. And here's what that thing is. When asked what the greatest commandment was, Jesus said to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is just like it, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so what I find really interesting is that this should be the core, at the core of what we believe and how we live as Christians. In fact, it shouldn't just be the core, it should be the filter of what we put through our lives, whether it be our, the things that we do or how we interpret the world or view and treat other people. And you have to ask yourself, am I living out this principle? Am I living by, I believe some people have referred to this as the Jesus Creed. Is the way that I'm treating this person line up with how I love God and how I love people. And the sad thing is I guarantee you a majority of people will say yes, but the actual truth of their lifestyle and the way they live will be no. For example, I know so many Christians who would say that, oh yes, that's my lifestyle. I'm a Christian, of course I believe in that. But in practice, and in reality, what actually happens is that they take other things from the Bible and they make that more important. So a really specific example of this is the gifts of the Spirit. A lot of Christians believe that the gifts of the Spirit are extremely important, to the point that if your church doesn't believe in the gifts of the Spirit or act on them or operate or use them in a very outward sort of way, then they bring you down a spiritual notch. You are not as spiritual as they are, and it becomes a game of respectability. You are less respectable as a Christian, as a leader, if you're not actively or regularly speaking in tongues or prophesying or so on and so forth. And so they say, oh yes, I believe that we should love each other as Christians, but then in practice, they're actually glorifying the gifts of the Spirit. And in their conversation, that's all they talk about, the gifts of the Spirit. Prophecy and speaking in tongues and dreams and visions, and that's all you hear out of their mouths. You never hear any of them talking about Jesus. I can tell you that I know many Christians who I've had ungodly amount of conversations about the gifts of the Spirit, but I've never seen that person share the message and love of Jesus Christ with another person. And so that becomes a problem. You're now taking something that is just a part of the Bible and giving it high priority to everything else. Another really great example of this is the way a lot of Christians view church. If the doors are open, they're there 4, 5, 6 times a week. And it gets to the point where you're in church so much to the point that how are you sharing the message of Jesus Christ? How are you sharing the good news? How do you have time for it if you're in church all the time? And it becomes a thing where they also start to pat themselves on the back because, I went to church 5 times a week, and now church is the priority. So this is something that I think is not only important to Christians, and for a lot of reasons. We've got to have our priorities right. Like I said, the Jesus Creed, love God, love each other, that needs to be the filter. Everything that we do needs to start from that. That is the core principle of our faith. And if you don't run everything through that, then you're missing the mark. You're not going to be sharing the message and love of Jesus Christ everywhere you go. You're going to be running out on street corners. You're going to be walking into schools thinking that you need to prophesy and lay hands on every single kid or person that you come across, and you're going to scare the shit out of them, and they're going to want nothing to do with God. Whereas if you come from a place of love, then you will touch their lives. And you share the good news of Jesus Christ with them, that He died and rose again for their salvation so that He can dwell with them and that His Spirit can be with that person and guide them through their lives and through all of eternity. That's the message of Jesus Christ. And it has nothing to do with speaking in tongues or prophesying. The other thing is, a lot of Christians love to say, you make TV an idol. You make music an idol. You make they take all these things, these hobbies that you do, and they say, that you make it an idol. They never turn the mirror around and look at themselves. At the point that you take any part, one particular part of the Bible, whether it be the gifts of the Spirit or church or any other piece of the Bible, if you put it before the message of the love of Jesus Christ, then you're wrong. That's all it is.
Our little head's getting wet now too. Run, Stevie.
Run, Silas! Yeah, right? Totally worth it. Alright, that's it for this episode. Hit the like button if you like this. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos. I'll see you next time.